Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I will share with you the best tank designs you can use in HOI4 in 2025. If that sounds interesting, then this is the right video for you. And of course, if you have been enjoying the content I make, please do not forget to support the channel by liking the video, subscribing, and leaving me a comment. It really helps. Also, before we start, let me say just a couple of things. First of all, these are single-player oriented tank designs, but you can find a video in the description covering all of my multiplayer-oriented templates and designs. Now, of course, I will also include a link to the best division templates to see where and how to use these tank designs. I will mention the most important stats as we look at each design, but there is one stat in particular that deserves a separate discussion. And that is reliability. Now, in the comments, you will likely see some people saying that we don't have enough reliability on these tanks. And you will see some people saying that reliability is useless and we have too much. So what is reliability and who is right? In short, reliability affects the amount of equipment you lose to attrition. Meaning low reliability will decimate your tanks if you end up without supplies or in high attrition terrains. Now, the argument is that you should not end up without supplies or in high attrition terrains in the first place. So if you micro your tanks carefully, then you do not care about reliability. And this is why, spoiler alert here, multiplayer tanks like this one usually have very low reliability. However, for the average player, and in the majority of scenarios, I would recommend having at least some reliability to allow some room for mistake. I would try to stay within the 70–80% range. Now, ultimately, this is up to you and to how confident you are in your own skills. That being said, we can start looking at this first design. Now, this is a tank that we aim to use with motorized infantry, so we want a speed of around 8 km per hour. Make sure to adjust the engine to reach the desired speed, which also depends on the country, the doctrines you picked, the MIO, so it won't always be 7. This is a 1939 tank, meaning we aim to have enough of these tanks produced by the beginning of World War II. The most important stat on single-player tanks is soft attack. So that's why we are picking a medium howitzer as our main armament and 2 heavy machine guns. If you feel like you want more piercing and hard attack, you can replace the medium howitzer with a medium cannon instead. However, that should really not be the case in single player. I ran several tests and higher soft attack is always the way to go in single player. And if you're asking why, is because even the armored templates that you see in the game are not really armored. If you look at Germany, for example, when World War II starts, look at their armored templates and you will see it's very low hardness. It's mostly light tanks with motorized infantry. So soft attack remains the most important stat in single player. Now, the radio will help boost our breakthrough, which is another important stat on tanks and templates in general. And these tanks usually push so quickly and so easily that armor is not really needed. You don't need extra breakthrough, you don't need extra armor, you will not take casualties in any case. However, if you really do not care about reliability, you are confident you will not run into any attrition, then feel free to add some armor. If you add armor, you will decrease reliability, you will need to increase the engine to compensate, but you will also increase the armor and the breakthrough. As for the last module here, we are using the easy maintenance module. This is very good because it adds some reliability, but especially it reduces the production cost by 5%. At the same time, this module is quite expensive in terms of army experience to add to your tank design, and it requires 2 additional technologies, as you need to unlock the Maintenance Company 1 and the Maintenance Company 2, which we're actually not going to use, so that's not great. So a good alternative here would be to use the wet ammunition storage. If you care about reliability, this will give you even more reliability. And if you do not care about reliability, you can go for a sloped armor, especially if you invest a little bit in the armor of your tank. Now let's move on to the next design, the TI1. This is very similar, but there is one important difference. This design is meant to be used with regular infantry, not with motorized infantry. So in this case, we do not care about the max speed. Although we do still want the speed to be above 4 km per hour, slightly above, because tanks suffer from greater terrain penalties compared to infantry. So if you don't want to slow down your infantry, you want to be slightly above the 4 km per hour mark. Generally, we want higher reliability on infantry tanks because they are usually more likely to incur into lack of supply and terrain penalties. And that's why we are using this diesel engine. We don't care about speed and we get the extra reliability. On this tank design, we also want more armor and more breakthrough, so that we can further boost both the offensive and defensive potential of our infantry. And for this reason, we are using this suspension module, which will increase the breakthrough. And we're investing a lot more in armor, boosting both the breakthrough and the armor. Now, as we said earlier, and it's even more true here, if you want to invest more significantly in the armor, sloped armor may be a good choice, although it does increase the production cost of the tank quite significantly, especially when you are swapping out the easy maintenance module. Now, the next one is a straight upgrade, and you can go for this one as you unlock the advanced radio and the improved medium howitzer. The rest of the design is basically exactly the same, so it's a straight upgrade, it's an easy one. And since we are using the same chassis, you can usually get this one around 1940 and you can start upgrading your tanks right away. Now, for what concerns the improved motorized version of this tank, so the first one, here we're opting for a chassis upgrade, but that's not absolutely necessary, it's up to you. In this case, we opted for a chassis upgrade and we opted to invest more into armor. If you don't do that, you can also stick to the previous one and just upgrade the radio and the howitzer. Now, we don't have any advanced medium tank chassis designs, as upgrading to it is never worth it in my opinion. So in my opinion, you can just stick to basic or improved medium tank chassis for the entire run. Now, the next one is a bit of a weird design because unfortunately modern tanks are not very good. Now, you get them very late in the game and they cannot use, for some weird reason, heavy machine guns modules. Meaning your soft attack will not benefit that much from the upgrade, although at least you can use the heavy howitzer on this tank, so that's one upgrade. And the high reliability allows you to invest more into engine and armor, meaning we can go for a speed of 10 km per hour, which would match the more advanced version of the mechanized infantry you are likely to have at this point of the run. Thanks to the armor skirts and the sloped armor modules, we can also get some very high armor, which can help, but again, it's not really needed. Now, don't get me wrong, this is not per se a bad design. If you compare it with our previous medium tanks, this one is better, of course. However, it is also significantly more expensive, and it is a different type of tank, meaning you need to redesign your entire template and waste a lot of army experience, although probably by that point of the game you have nothing else to do with army experience anyway. Now, if this tank may not be worth making, something that is absolutely worth making is a medium flame tank. Flame tanks are now unlocked through a land special project, and the medium flame tank support company provides some amazing terrain buffs in most terrains. Here I have 3 possible variants for you, and this one is the most basic and also the cheapest one. Just make sure that you select the flame tank support company up here, or it will not work, and that you match the speed of your main tanks. If you want to make it even cheaper, you can stick to the interwar medium flame tank. You don't even need the basic medium flame tank. Now, another option we have here, the second variant of this tank, is a similar one, but using fuel drums instead of leaving these modules empty. For the last module, we're also using the dozer blade, which adds some entrenchment. These things are not affected by it being a flame tank company, and having extra fuel capacity on your tank divisions can help them push longer before they need to stop. Some extra entrenchment is also always good to have. Also, I really love the idea of stuffing a flame tank with fuel drums. That sounds amazing. What could ever go wrong? Now, for the last version I have for you here, we have this medium flame tank. This is more of a multiplayer flame tank. In this case, we are also not matching the speed of our tanks, but you can increase the engine. This actually has pretty good breakthrough, thanks to these modules, which increase the breakthrough, and this suspension type. In single player, this is not really needed, but in multiplayer, every single bit of breakthrough can make the difference, and that's why this tank is more popular. Actually, the most popular one in multiplayer would be this version, so the interwar medium flame tank, as we don't care at all about reliability, and it is still fairly cheap. Personally, for single player, I would stick to one of the first 2 that I showed you. Now, we don't have any heavy tank designs for single player. We will have some for multiplayer, but they have their own dedicated video, again in the description. Unfortunately, in single player, I cannot find any reason to go for heavy tanks instead of medium tanks. However, we do have a couple of light tank designs that I'm ready to share with you. Now, this first design I have for you is fairly cheap, very fast, and can be produced very early in the game, as it doesn't have any advanced modules. This can also work with a basic light tank chassis, you don't need the improved one, so that's another option. Now, overall, the main issue I have with light tanks is that, yeah, this design is cheaper, but not that much cheaper than our medium tank design, and the stats are much worse. So most of the time, in my opinion, it's worth waiting a bit longer, making the investment in medium tanks and going for them. The other thing you could do is you could try to aim for 12 km/h speed, so make them very fast in order to use them combined with motorized infantry in the early stages of the game. Now, there is another funny thing you can do with light tanks, and that I'm going to show you next. And it is this, I mean, look at how stupid it looks, it's amazing. So you can make these light SPG. SPGs unfortunately are not very good in general, which is why I don't have any medium SPG designs for you. Now, the main reason SPGs are not usually good is that they take 3 with per battalion instead of the 2 of regular tanks. So in the end, they end up having worse stats. And even when they can compete in terms of soft attack, they fall behind in terms of breakthrough. So the purpose for this tank here is to be as cheap as possible, 4.13, that's very cheap. And we're actually going to use this tank instead of line artillery. So this is not really a tank, it's literally line artillery. Compared to regular line artillery, it has significantly more soft attack. It costs basically exactly the same. The only problem is it doesn't really have breakthrough. So compared to regular line artillery, you gain in some stats, but you also consume fuel. You need an additional design, you need an additional production line. You can make it a little bit later. It uses more supplies and it doesn't have breakthrough. In the end, I personally don't use it, but I do plan to test it a little bit more, because the idea of having so much soft attack on such a cheap design sounds quite good. Now, the very last design I have for you is another one I personally never use, as I find it to be very cheesy. That being said, this can be incredibly effective. It is a light self-propelled anti-air with sloped armor and with as much armor as you can invest in it. Its purpose again is to be as cheap as possible so that you can produce a lot of them, you can produce them early, and you can produce them virtually with any country, even with minors. What you do next is you add them to your infantry divisions, making them armored, with the added bonus of also having some air attack. Now, this is what is used the most to make what's commonly called Space Marines. And Space Marines are basically infantry divisions using this design to increase the average armor up to the point in which they are basically impossible to pierce for enemy divisions. If you're into that, you should definitely give this design a try. But using proper tanks, in my opinion, is less cheesy and it's also a lot more fun. And that was really the last design I had for you today. Now, make sure to check the description for the templates in which these designs are used. And that's all for today. Of course, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please do not forget to support the channel by liking the video, subscribing, and leaving me a comment. Also, make sure to let me know your thoughts about these designs, and if you have any suggestions to further improve them. Other than that, if you stayed with me until now, of course, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys very soon in the next video. Bye bye!